We begin with a Fox News alert. The White House forced to walk back these explosive comments made by President Biden a few hours ago when he seemed to call for a regime change in Russia.
Bent on rebuilding an empire will never erase a people's love for liberty. We will have a different future, a brighter future, rooted in democracy and principles, hope and light, of decency and dignity, of freedom and possibilities. For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power.
The White House quickly followed up with a statement telling Fox News, quote, he was not discussing Putin's power in Russia or a regime change, end quote. Biden also saying in his speech that Putin isn't winning.
That this war has already been a strategic failure for Russia, already. Having lost children myself, I know that's no solace to the people who've lost family. But he, Putin, thought Ukrainians would roll over and not fight. Rather than breaking Ukrainian resolve, Russia's brutal tactics have strengthened the resolve. Rather than driving NATO apart, the West is now stronger and more united than it has ever been.
Katie, I want to go ahead and start with you. A lot to dig into right there. President Biden giving so many mixed messages and also essentially saying that, Russia's not winning the war. We do know the Ukrainians have been very strong and they have put up a very good fight. But there's so many people who say this president who said that he would use diplomacy to ensure that this wouldn't happen is now talking about removing a dictator and a war that rages on. Your thoughts about how he's handling this and also how it resonates with voters?
Well, the president has repeatedly said that he has no interest in getting the United States into World War III. But given his stumbling statements and sloppy communication throughout this process, he may just get us into World War III as a result of a miscommunication, which can lead to a miscalculation, which is how most wars start. You have the president this week claiming that sanctions are not about deterrence when the entirety of his administration, whether it's the Secretary of State, the White House press secretary, or his national security advisor, have been saying for weeks that sanctions are meant to deter. And then, of course, this week he was in Poland speaking to U.S. troops. And then after adamantly claiming that U.S. troops would never be going into Ukraine, it's not a NATO country, but that every inch of NATO territory would be defended, the president spoke nonchalantly like U.S. troops are going to be going into Ukraine. Now, this was supposed to be a foreign policy speech to define President Biden's first term. The rest of it got lost as a result of the statement that he made at the end about Vladimir Putin needing to go. And the White House statement following up is not what was heard around the world. What was heard around the world is that the Biden administration is changing strategy here. And not only are they just going, supporting Ukrainians, they are now interested in removing Vladimir Putin. Of course, that brings up a whole other set of questions about, okay, well, who's going to replace him? Yeah. What does that process look like? Who's going to manage that process? So it's, you have to be so careful about the things you say, and the president has not been doing that.
There is so much to parse through here, but I want to stick on that point that you talked about, which is this idea that there could be troops on the ground, that Biden himself suggested it. I want everyone to listen to this soundbite.
See when you're there, and some of you have been there, you're going to see women, young people standing in the middle of front of a damn tank, just saying, I'm not leaving, I'm holding my ground.
News a statement on this saying, quote, the president has been clear, we are not sending U.S. troops to Ukraine, and there is no change in that position. So more mixed messaging here. Joey, your thoughts on what would happen if troops are on the ground and we are engaged in a World War III? This is really serious.
If we've learned anything this week, it's that we cannot trust the President of the United States to tell us the truth or even know what he wants to say. And we certainly can't trust his White House. This week alone, we've had the president refute every single person in his cabinet who's spoken on this issue, from the press secretary to the Secretary of State, about what deterrents are and what sanctions are meant to be. And now in 2 days, we get troops are or are not going to go into Ukraine. We are or are not going to use chemical weapons in kind, which is a very specific thing to say. and now we are or are not going to support the regime change of Putin and Russia. Listen, this is scary times, and this is not the way you want the person in charge to be talking about these things. And the fact that they think and that large portions of the media will allow them to just sweep these as gaffes, these are not gaffes. These are important and incoherent things that the president's saying. And I'll tell you what, man, I just would hate to be in camouflage utility sitting in front of him with him looking me in the face saying, when you get to Ukraine, and then have someone from the White House say, oh, the president's been clear on this. What is clear about any of this?
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.